So, who's ever been down to the boardwalk of some coastal town, or been to a fair, gone to the Easter show, or I don't know, even just somebody maybe down in Darling Harbour and had a caricature drawn? Yeah? You all done that? I've done that way back. I still have this sort of firmly ingrained memory of our family getting caricatures done way back in those days. Caricatures. We used to you'd walk up to a skillful caricaturist. Like, there are good ones and there are bad ones, right? There are kind ones and unkind ones. But no, there are good caricaturists and not good caricaturists. So we used to walk up to a skillful one, pay them the money, they look at our faces, and with a texter or a pencil in hand, get drawing. Now, a skillful caricaturist artist does something quite clever. They look at our faces and our expressions and our features. They narrow in on some identifying trait, and then they magnify it. They might ask you what your hobbies are, what work you do, and they'll pick one of those. That time when I was a child, my family were tennis players. And so that came up in conversation. And so our character, I still remember, must have been only about 8 or 9 years old, but we were all holding tennis rackets. And it was obvious to see who's who. We could tell. That's Dad. Yep, that's his nose all right. That's, the rest I'll be kind about. But now we have apps that can do it. So let's have a look at what we see on the screen here. Nate, let's put it up. I think he looks better than me, but it's good. It's good. You all know who this is? But do you know who that is? Sitting in the same place. And Carl was sitting in the same place. He just moved up the back there, but he was down here. We have apps that do it. Okay, so why do caricatures... You can leave it up for a minute, Nathan. Why do caricatures work? Well, we all have a few shortcuts that our brain does to help us make people more recognizable. What it does is compile... I researched this. It compiles the average nose length, the average eye size, the average body shape, and everything like that. This is what our mind does subconsciously. Eye shapes. It compiles chin length, hairstyles. It combines an average. And then what it does is, when you're looking at me, everyone else, or anyone else for that matter in your world, our brain subconsciously calculates how far we deviate from the average on any given particular feature. And so what our brain does is actually draws a caricature in our memory. I did the research. This is true. We all do it subconsciously. And so it's an inaccurate representation. So when we see everybody, you're all doing that now. You're all like, who am I? I wonder what everyone sees in me, Is it these eye length? Is it my beard? What is it? But we all do it. We create this caricature thing. But here's the thing. It's not a photograph of our face. The caricature magnifies and does odd things in our memory. So it's not so much that a good caricature isn't inaccurate. A good caricature is strategically inaccurate in exact ways that make our face most memorable. Strategically inaccurate. So when you see a good caricature artist and you see that and you can tell who's who, a good caricature, this is Gemini on, the AI bot, but a good caricature artist, right? This is exactly what they do. They make a strategically inaccurate representation so that it looks like, and we can all identify who they are. Now, this is what I believe everybody does with God as well. Because right now, if I were to ask everyone here what God is like, I expect we'll come up with about 50 or however many people are in the room, 60 people, 70 people, different answers. There might be some similarities, but our answers would be different. Because we all see God a bit like a caricature through the lenses of our lives. And I don't mean we see the image of a caricature, so don't take me literally. We look at the traits of God and we magnify some, and we don't even see others. So our life and the collection of all of our experiences affects the way that we see God. So our childhood, our family of origin will affect the way we see God. The spirituality of the world that you grew up will affect the way you see God. If you grew up in a very atheist part of the world, seeing God is challenging. But if you grew up in a very highly spiritualized part of the world, you'll see God in a different way. The traumas and successes we've had in life will affect the way we see God, both the bad and the good. The way we came to faith, the way we met Jesus in the first place, the first churches that we attended, the messages we listened to, and how much the Bible we've read or not read will affect the way we see God. And all the very many variables that we've experienced to get in through the door today will affect the way we see God. And so in the Bible, God and who God is a constantly revealed truth. And it's revealed in many ways, revealing more and more who God really is. Though, of course, the Bible is also very clear in saying we simply cannot get to the full understanding of who God is. We simply cannot contain a full description of him because he's so far beyond our experience as humans. And one of these revelations of who God is came to Moses on Mount Sinai as he stood before the burning bush and heard God speak to him. Even then, Moses was a little perplexed. It says here in Exodus 3:13, Moses said to God, suppose, he's kind of toying with the idea of doing what God asked him to do. Suppose I do what you've asked me to do, God. Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? This is the Hebrew idea of name. It's not a set of letters that make an identifying sound, but more related to the renown and honor and the character. So suppose they asked him, what is your name? It's really Moses was asking not what's written on your name tag, but who are you? What are you like? Then what shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. It's this constant tense in this word. Not tension, but constant tense in grammar. The phrase I am has no beginning or end. It's not I was, nor is it I will be, but it is I am. Back then I am, right now I am, and soon I am. Doesn't make sense in English, but that's really the kind of tense you're meant to catch here. So that's how God revealed himself to Moses on the mountain, by telling him, I am who I am. Which is maybe more difficult to understand than as if he'd said nothing. But maybe that's the point. Maybe he was talking to Moses and he said, Moses, you can't accurately say who I am. You don't have the language. You don't have the mental capacity. You don't have a wide enough view of the cosmos in all of its dimensions. I am bigger, wider, deeper, and in every way more imaginable and unimaginably bigger. I am more than you can conceive. And so since the time of Moses, I am is used in this way. That phrase, or those two words, I am, is used in this way, and it became the name of God. It became the defining baseline truth of who God is. Even the word Yahweh, which you might have heard before, Hebrew word, it is a collection of the same sounds as the phrase I am. So this phrase I am became a phrase in the Hebrew mind that pointed directly to God and God alone. Became a holy phrase. Okay, that's great, Joel. We know you're a big Bible nerd. So what do we do with this information? Well, first we meditate on it, and we on it for a while, and we chew on it for a while, and we on it for a while, and we ponder on it for a while, maybe for our whole life. But then we open our Bibles again and see if we can find I am used in this same way in other parts of the Bible. And when we do that, we're going to find that in fact this phrase is used and it is pointing to God, but not in a way that people expected. We're going to talk about 7 times that we find this phrase, I am, used. And in each one, Jesus is saying it, absolutely alluding to God, without a doubt, but also saying it of himself. I'm not going to do them all today, so don't stress. I'm going to talk for 9 hours. For the next 7 weeks, we're going to open this idea of I am and when Jesus says it and what does he mean when he says it. So, the first one we're going to do today, and it's fitting that it's Easter because we're going to get it from John 11. Now, at some point, we're going to put this thing on the screen, which it has a QR code. And if you want to just use that QR code is going to point to an online or a digital. That's one right there. It's creating a digital booklet, which is going to work as a study guide to help us for the next 7 weeks. So, I labored over this, so please, like 2 or 3 of you at least hit that QR code. But the idea of the study guide is to help you ask some interesting questions as we go. Now, you won't need it for the sermon today because I think our messages won't always exactly flow with what's in the book because 3 of those messages won't be done by me. We've got visiting speakers to do some of them. But it will help you unpack and wrestle with and have discussions with God and with yourself and whoever else you might have that discussion with. It'll help you unpack these 7 I ams that we're going to go through in the next 7 weeks. All right. The first one, let's build a little context. Jesus' ministry was coming to a head. It was the end of his 3 years of ministry. His opposers were gathering in strength. Their hostility towards Jesus' message and all that he was doing was coming to a head. But in the midst of that, one of his dear friends, Lazarus, fell ill. We know that he's a dear friend of Jesus because it says so. He's the brother of Mary and Martha. John 11:3. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Verse 4, when he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. And then he lingered. I'm sort of giving you a summary version, but Jesus lingered. He didn't go to his sick friend straight away. He lingered where he was. He stayed where he was 2 more days. After a couple of days went by, he said to his disciples, okay, let's go. Let's go back to Judea. Judea, the main area, capital was Jerusalem, the city where the hostility towards Jesus was the strongest, actually. Was at its worst, the place that was filled with people, powerful people, who wanted and could make it happen, Jesus to die. So on his way, though, Lazarus died. They didn't get message. Jesus knew. Somehow, maybe the Holy Spirit spoke to him, but Jesus found out somehow that Lazarus had died. He first of all told his disciples, Lazarus has gone to sleep, and his disciple says, well, that's good, let him sleep, it'll get better. Jesus had to say no. He had to be really plain. Lazarus is dead. Now at that time, because the hostility was so strong in Jerusalem, the disciples were pretty worried. They didn't want to go to Jerusalem. They didn't want to go to Judea, because that meant they were going to die too as followers of Jesus. They were going to be in all kinds of trouble. So then Thomas, classic, love Thomas. If you can associate yourself with anyone in the Bible, Thomas is a good one. Feels very much like me. He's so honest. Verse 16 of John 11, Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let's go, that we all may die with him. Fine. We're all going to die, let's just go anyway. And here's where we pick up the story. So John 11, verse 17, Jesus is coming into a town called Bethany, which is about 2 miles away, maybe 3 kilometers away from Jerusalem. Now, here we go. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. So he died and in the tomb 4 days. So at least 4 days dead, more than likely 5. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, as I said, in verse 19, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. It was customary at the loss of somebody that many would come to mourn with you and spend a week mourning with you in those days. Verse 20, when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Martha had a limited view of who Jesus was. Like a caricature, she saw him only in part of who he really was. She could see him as a healer because she'd seen him do it before. But death created a limit to that for her. A limit to who Christ Jesus was and what he was able to do. And Jesus detected that in her voice, because his reply to her said, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Yeah. You can imagine her nodding then in her sorrow, yes, we do have that hope. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And again, Martha could imagine that. She could imagine that. Jesus could do that. But he needed to scrub out that limited image of himself, her limited view. It was time to expand it and to see more and to know more. And so she goes on, verse 25. She doesn't go on. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? These 2 words, I am, at the start of it. To Martha's ears, to John's ears, who was the one who wrote this down and one of Jesus' closest disciples, to the other disciples that were there, to their ears, to all the people that were mourning with Martha, who heard him say them on that day, which was many people, right? To all of their ears, these 2 words that John wrote down, to the eyes of the first readers of the book he wrote, to the ears of those who heard it read out, and to everyone 10 years later, 20 years later, 100 years later, these 2 words, I am, now 2,000 years later, must resonate in our ears and our eyes like it did for Martha and all those Hebrew ears and eyes in those days. Jesus was very clearly, without a doubt, connecting himself with God. With the God who had revealed himself in those same 2 words all those hundreds of years back and with Moses. I am. When Jesus said, I am, He was pointing to God and himself as the same person. Only this time, unlike the burning bush, Jesus gives us more. God said, I am who I am. But in this case, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Things that die don't stay dead in me. People who die don't stay dead in me. Death has no sting in me. In Jesus, who was God come to earth as one of us, in him, death has no power. It no longer has the final word. And actually, even more so, those who trust in him, whoever lives by believing in him, whoever has faith in him and lives according to that trust, will reverse what happens all the way back in Eden. When God said, if you eat from this tree, you will die, all the way back in Eden. If you don't trust in me and don't do what I said, then you will die. This was the promise in Eden. They only had one thing that they had to do, but Jesus reverses that. He gives us another chance. He takes us all the way back to Eden, right here in the church. Right here, we are back in Eden. And the I Am is offering us again the opportunity to partner with him and build the garden with him, to go and fulfill and fill the earth and to rule it with his wisdom and to live and never die. He is the life. This sentence, the one who believes in me will live even though they die, the very next sentence, so this is about resurrection, but the next sentence is an exact opposite of Eden, of what happened in Eden. Same promise. They were promised, you will never die if you live according to what I asked you to do. He's offering it again. Just let that rest in you for a moment. He's offering the same promise. And he proved it. He called out to Lazarus in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. In verse 44 of John 11, the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and cloth around his face. But we know, it's Easter today, that even wasn't the ultimate proof. The ultimate proof is what we're celebrating today. Verse 1 of John 20. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. And after she called Peter and John, and they looked in and saw that there was no one in the tomb, still confused, they went home. But Mary stayed. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one on the head, the other at the foot. And they asked her, Woman, why are you crying? I mean, duh, angels. They have taken my Lord away, she said, and I don't know where they have put him. Still limited view. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. So he asked her, Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for? Thinking he was the gardener, she said, and actually he is the gardener, if you let that thought settle. Why are you crying? Who are you looking for? If you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him and I'll go get him. And that's when Jesus said to her name, Mary. She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. Jesus rose again. He is the resurrection, the I am who overcame death and decay, and today we celebrate. As people who follow him, and we, even though we may die, we will live. And we who follow him, trusting, believing, have faith in him, we receive God's invitation to return to the garden and to have life always, forever, in harmony with our Creator and with each other, living by that trust and belief. We will, like Jesus lives, never die. I am. He has the power over death. He has the power even to flip over what happened at Eden and invite us once again to partner with him into eternity. Pathway is belief. The pathway is trust. So I'm going to ask you today, maybe close your eyes. I want to ask you today, do you believe? What do you believe? Does your belief need to expand? Do you need to see Jesus as not just a miracle worker and generally nice guy, but do you need to begin to see him as the I am, as the God revealed here on earth? The pathway is belief, trust, faith. And so today, search your heart. Discover, do you trust? Do you believe? Do you have faith? I want to invite you, if you've never declared that you would like to have faith and trust in Jesus, that you can today. In other words, would you like to become a Christian today? A Christian is someone who follows after Jesus, trusting in him. If you would like to become a Christian today, I'd like you to raise your hand on your seat, wherever you're sitting. Just wave to me and I'll tell you can put it back down again, because this is your chance. Okay, I've seen one hand. You can put it down. Thank you. This is between you and God and not me. From this day forward, I want to trust in you, Jesus. That's all you need to start saying in your mind, in your heart. And if you're someone who maybe drifted, or maybe started trusting in other things, or maybe put your hope in something else, or maybe your view of Jesus is too small, I want to invite you to allow Jesus to expand your vision. I'd like you to invite you to listen to how he called himself. I am. I am. In the beginning, he was there. In the beginning, he was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. Jesus is the same I am that we read all through the scriptures. So Jesus, today we honor you and praise you. God, I pray, expand our vision of who you are. The parts of our life that we fail to trust you, God, help us to try again. Be with us by your Spirit to help us try again. As we go into our week and our days and our lives, God, I pray you'd help us see you for who you really are, not in a limited way, but in an ever-expanding way. In Jesus' name.